Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for
Q&A session has started. To ask your question, please press star 6. The recording has started.
I'd like to definitely thank everyone for calling in. My name is Derek Simmons. I'm the founder of Vision Group. I'd like to thank everybody for sharing the call as well. It's not too late, 11, but it is definitely today at 7:30. So if you want to resend that out, just let people know it's not too late, that you can log on. Start at 7 today. We try to go from 7:30 to 8:30 on every Tuesday. Last week we definitely had a great discussion. This week I know it's going to be awesome also. So if you have anything that you want to announce, if you have any upcoming events or anything like that as well, let me know. You can inbox me. You can text and go in if you got a question, you got a comment or something that you want to say or you want to get said on the air. Then what you have to do is just you can click star 6 if you want to talk or if you want to say something. But if you just want to type it in, you can click on this YouTube link that's in the message, and then you can just type it, and we'll see the message come up on the side, and then we'll read it. We have up and coming as well, so you definitely want to click on the link and just subscribe to it as well. So we want to jump into it now. Man, I definitely like to bring my co-host in. For those that don't know, I'm going to let her introduce herself before we jump right into the topic. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, this is Dr. Andrea Matthews. Got my PhD in religious studies. I study the connections between religion and art. Known for the religion and hip hop class with dialogue with you all on Tuesdays. So thank you.
Right, man. I want to start putting things in place so we don't have to just get out there and bump our heads. A lot of people say they excuse, I don't know what to do. If I had somebody there and I knew what to do, time you have something going on, I would definitely like it. Health issues. It's hosted by Gloria Johnson. So that's be from 7 to 10 on the 6th. This Saturday from 7 to 10. You don't have to stay the whole time, but once you get there, I guarantee you'll love it. So come out, voice your opinion. I never really had been to an open dialogue like that. Conversation to say what you want to say about that particular topic. There's other people in the room. Last time it was a great crowd, great environment. It was just energetic and everything. It was real good. So once again, that's this Saturday from 7 to 10 as well. And I know they do the Black Wall Street as well on Village Creek from 9 to 5 in Fort Worth on Village Creek. If you have your own business, you can go out there and they will promote your business, set up a table. I think they have, this is the last Saturday, I saw a video, I think this is the last Saturday where you can actually go out and put your products out there for free. So you want to make sure you go out there and support that. It's from 9 to 5 at Village Creek. And also, for those the first-time callers, just to let you know how the call works, you can press star 6 at any time, and you'll go into queue. I see it light up in queue, and then I click on you, and then we'll bring you into the conversation. Well, what we're talking about today.
And then doing a boat party ride, after parties, free festival. We got local talent coming out. We also have more is going to give the actual
faith. Where do we go from here? We've definitely been digging into this topic of saying, where do we really go from here? Now that we see it's different beliefs, it's people saying it's historical, people saying it's about faith, mythological, they saying all this, but where do we get the common denominator, and where do we really go from this point? And that's why I was really impressed by the message of Dr. Woods, because even after all the dust settled, even though he was in a church setting, he was able to give some stats about, the African-American men, because it was a men's stats, and even through everything that we've been through economically, we are still in the same place, even though, we have confessed, we believe, we say we have this stuff. Some of the stats we are still in the same place. And so now, that's why I came up with it too as well. Where do you think about this? Yeah,
I think. Yeah. I think you need both. I believe that you need and how they have used the faith is something that you have no proof of. It's unseen. Don't know what it is. You just believe in it because it validates you, it motivates you, and it makes sense. Your life makes sense believing what you believe. And so, just from that standpoint, I think that
blue-eyed. Now that you find out, and historically they like, well, that's not even how he looked. So I don't want to deal with it at all. And I think that's a misconcept that a lot of people are gravitating to because it is a lot.
And no, if you're really grounded and you really want to study to show thyself approved, which is what you should do according to what the Christian belief is, then why wouldn't you want like at Bright Divinity School, we start looking at the history of Christianity, and you just take Christian art within itself. Do you know how many different, based on who was in power, what was going on? There's like the Jesus that you see today. Early Christians who are dead now, if they saw now, they'd be like, "That's not Jesus." You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't. The two would be totally different. You know what I mean? And so, and there are some similarities, but go look it up. If you go just look up pictures of, the Jesus that came out in the earlier part, like after the first century, second, he was muscular. Jesus was, people, this is why people get upset about it. Jesus was fine, too. He was, and they had a, but I'm just saying.
That's that old woman coming out of you.
But numerous pictures of Jesus and some of his facial expressions were not, this is not according to the Bible. I want the picture with his hair wool and his humanness. To negate his humanness negates him. And your full understanding of it. And obviously it doesn't work. I'm just saying, go ahead.
Well, what I want to do, for those that are calling in as well right now, we're talking about the historical Jesus and the Christ of faith. I want to hear from you. Press *6 on your line if you got a question, got a comment. This has been something that we all discussed as well. Now, I believe that a lot of times the Christ, the faith part of us, we have to really get past the historical piece if that's just a hang-up for you. If that's a hang-up for you and it don't allow you to look biblically and see biblical principles and see what was going on. Because I had some brothers, it's especially in the conscious community, it's a big debate. Should you not even mention the name of Christ? Should you, we know it wasn't Jesus Christ because one article, and it was arguing the fact that if you make it a historical Jesus and you put it into a man, then you have to start talking about the covenant. You have to get all the way back to David. You have to look it all back into the story. Does that change your black presence in the Bible?
He was African or a mixture of because he could have been a hybrid, right? He definitely could have been. And they, still communicate with him without you being two separate types of Christians, right? And so therefore, because if we could do that, we wouldn't have, in my opinion, all the different variations of Christians on the planet. If we would take more responsibility, it's okay. He was a universal individual. He, human beings.
So you saying if it's historical, so even if we take the historical part and go back and say, okay, Jesus was, you have to look at it, and do you say, okay, now because he was from this particular seed, or he was from, even the black Hebrewites and all that, they say, because this is our seed, and because this our land, because if you start saying historical, does that matter about who land it is, or is it all
that you would need to know if you're going to stay in that church? you call the Christian church. That's what you're supposed to be, one body. Don't you want to know why somebody decided to move the church?
How I can. And man, I gotta say,
okay, tell me how.
I do have people on the phone. Okay, if one person adopts the story a certain way and they say, "Oh, I don't believe in immaculate conception," historically, I don't believe that it was immaculate conceived, and so therefore, I don't need to believe that way or even operate that way because I don't believe that I'm operating in sin. Because now, this person was historically there, and maybe I'm blending the two, is historically there to say, okay, now I need to be forgiven for my sins, and because he was there to forgive me for my sins, because I don't believe this particular part of the story, that plays a direct part of your faith.
Yeah, but that's why we have denominations. That doesn't mean anything. So take case in point. If Jesus was really black and then the European came over and saw him and they turned him into white, to be working for him. If you make them Chinese, still seems to be making them, even enslaved Africans. We don't, if you haven't noticed, if you go to a black church and you go to a white church, there's a huge difference in delivery, in the music, how they actually do the service, the length of the service. Does it mean that black people don't believe in Jesus because they stay in church for 2 hours and the Catholics are out an hour? Or they say, Jesus, God, the way they do. And if you go to a white church, if you're going to interact with whites and blacks, then you need to know, and someone invites you to a white church because you're Christian, and they invite you, as good Christians are supposed to do, invite you to the church. Why wouldn't you want to know the historical context of how this church came about? And so, and if he was black, don't you want to know how they turned him white?
I'm gonna go to the phone.
Well, let me just say this. But I will say this. I mean, just say this one piece. The people who say that they don't want to learn it because it shakes the beautiful thing about faith, you can actually look at somebody and say, that might be true, but I choose to believe differently. What the Methodists did with the Catholics and the Baptists do with the Lutherans and the Lutherans do with the disciples of Christ. Or I don't want to believe the Virgin Mary. Does that means that because you woke up and said you don't want to give honor to the Pope and the Virgin Mary, even though that is the first Christian church, and you go to a Baptist or a Methodist church, does that make you less of a Christian? Does that make you less of a believer? Just because you don't want to believe that that Mary was the Immaculate Conception, not Jesus, that Mary was the Immaculate Conception.
Where do we really go from here? That's where we go off the next half. Where do we go from here? So,
how's it going? One station. We speaking about this Jesus, this so-called Jesus, and I believe us as a people will get somewhere. Talk about the physical Jesus and the spiritual Christ. If we separate the physical from Jesus, and you lose me. You understand?
Jesus
because
Christ. Now,
I believe in the crystal clear Christ consciousness. And with the sermon of Dr. Woods, because I have an African mindset. They still have a European mind.
I'm going to keep you online just in case somebody wants to say anything about
that. So here's the entry point, Berto, from here in an interfaith global world. The minute you use the word "I believe," we have nothing to talk about, right? So you don't. So anything historical. That's why we have to change the language. If we're going to do a library, there's millions of libraries all over the world. There's Texas. You're right there in Fort Worth. SMU. Someone who spent their whole academic career doing that.
Okay, can I?
If you came in the wait.
Mixed, though. On the behalf of both, I feel that it's mixed because it's a great topic, and I feel that some people with PhDs say Jesus never existed. The actual man Jesus never existed. I've talked to people that have PhDs say, hey, yeah, it was historical content to say a man named Jesus did actually exist historically. So I think that debate could go on forever, really. It has been been going on forever? Is it historically? Is it mythologically? Should we just
But,
have faith? So I think it's both sides of that. That's why I do want to kind of jump, if we can, to the. So where do we go?
But that's why
I know.
right. But that's. No, but that's just it. The folks who believe don't, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. Most people who believe will not sit down. That's the reason. Okay, so that's the reason why the discussion continues to go. That's what happens in academia, right? That's why the continuation goes. Like I said, there's a yin and a yang for every discussion, whether or not everything. So, but through those discussions, that if you're going to look at it historically, you have a different conversation, and you're allowed to pull back and do the heavy lifting in an academic setting that allows you to act so that you can determine what you believe. It's not so that you can debate with a scholar and they know more than you, or that they know more than you, but they know more than you. The reason why you have, like, in all these colleges and seminaries that Dr. Woods went to, that's why I shout out to Bright Divinity School, when you have these times, there's a reason why we take our time in classrooms and have these historical conversations, because they do help us develop God talk and a faith understanding. They do.
Okay, well, I do have other people on the line, so I do want to make sure I get.
Yeah.
Hold on, Red Bull. Let me get some other calls as well, because I do get a complaint that sometimes I don't get some of my other calls in, so I do want to get my calls in. If it's something that you want to say, press star 6 on your line as well. Go ahead. Call
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay,
yes,
this is Dr. Kimmett. Okay, the first thing I want to say, you're talking about the historical Christ. Okay, thing that you must, like I said, you have to understand the etymology.
Historical Jesus versus the Christ of faith.
Historical Jesus, right. I'm with you. So the first thing I'm going to break down the etymology. When you look in most dictionaries, Jesus means Zeus or nothing. Christ means the anointed of the Lord. And then Lord, like I said, means, man. That's the first point. The second point is that when you are a true Christ spiritual and separated, because they said that the cosmic gods and goddesses create goddesses own separated. If you ask any, and she talks about church in northern Africa, where your oldest Christian is the Coptic Church in Ethiopia, which is the last form of the Maranatha. So when you go in Gerald Massey's book, when he talks about the Egypt is the light of the world, okay, and then another book too by direct depiction of, like I said, the Divine Mother and the Son, okay, and even in Gerald Massey's book, it is made clear even at the end was the man, the mother, and the father, because again, there was no death before, stop me, okay? And I hate when people, like I said, do that, okay, because it's thought of. But I'm going to say this, okay, Ashwai, I've studied Ashwai. He's based here, like I said, in Dallas, okay? And you need, like I said, to look at some of his videos and go to some of his, like I said, seminars, so you can get the understanding. But the bottom
different beliefs. It's amazing to me. All this knowledge and wisdom. What are we doing with it? Where do we go from here? You know what I'm saying? What are we doing with the knowledge that we have? Are we really helping one another? Are we saying we can't be in unity? We can't flow in unity? We have all this, and it's amazing how much knowledge and wisdom we have, but yet in being productive, overall it's not working. So, to me, it's not. To me, I think we need to regroup and say, what is the whole basis? Now, me personally, I like to say, let's start economically, because we can go off on a whole bunch of belief systems. We can go off on this. How is that affecting our economy? Can you employ your son? With me, I like to start with that, because where do we go from here? I think we need to go all the way back and say, let people be people. Do your own thing. Whatever you believe is cool, but how do we harness all this? And this is a question that I would want to ask the people that you can press star 6, or you can go to the YouTube. Where do we go from here? So So now that we got all this, how do we better and use this for the African American community? What did you say, Dr. Matthews?
Well, I do agree with you. I do agree with you, and I do follow. I think that the leaders in the if there's three, I have to go back to my professor, Dr. Anthony Penn, and actually say basically the whole essence and nature of religion is you're only asking three fundamental questions: who are you? Why are you here? And what's the meaning of life? And all of us have all these different concepts of what you are. Are you black? Are you African? Are you Negro? Are you colored? Are you Kemet? Are you Egyptian? What are you? European, Latino, whatever. All these language words. You're trying to still figure that out. Even whatever the general consensus is, all of us can be an exception to that rule. As a woman, you want to know, why are you here? What's your purpose? What are you trying to do? They're highly complex and highly subjective. It's based on your experience. It's based on what you've read. It's based on what your parents taught you, what your parents didn't teach you, who taught you and who didn't teach you, and where you've been. What's the meaning of life? You're trying to answer these questions. And I don't think it's wrong if Jesus helps answer them. And so many reasons why we're economically not today, because, to my opinion, you're not thinking through a universal lens, and you're not willing to be open to all the different ways that God manifests. Because to me, in my opinion, I do agree with the Egyptians, and as you say, Kemet, that I start from the premise that if you made it to this planet, you are good. And in my belief system, that you're here for a purpose, and that everybody is an imitation of Christ, of this God-like
That's
essence.
good, but
period.
When we see us as an oppressed people, overall, when you see the people, and that was one of Jesus' messages. And even if you look at the article, when the articles that we've pulling up, one of his messages was, he said, the Spirit of the Lord was upon me. He had a message. He said, this is why Christ consciousness came, is because I came to deliver those that was oppressed and set the captivity.
Right. That's what. Right.
So if we're saying we have this Christ consciousness, it's so amazing that we have all this knowledge, but when do the oppressed go free?
Well, that's because
financially, emotionally, physically. So we believe in a whole bunch, but I'm challenging people to say, do you really believe, or do you have any corresponding action about what you believe? Because as a whole, I see some things that we missing. As a whole, how can we stay in the same place
Red Bull.
for 3 decades?
Well, hold on, Red Bull, because let me say this. So I do believe there is a concept that Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, all the different names that they call him by, was on the side of the oppressed. Which, to me, if you in your pantry, something within your consciousness that loves themselves and knows thyself, and what they're and because once they know that, then it's easy to eliminate oppression. It's easy to prevent people from getting rid of all the ills of the world if you would actually have compassion and not see people as other, and actually see it in your own, not being able to see clearly because you only want to believe what you want to believe and you want everybody else to do what you do, is the reason why we can't be loving. And as Martin Luther King would call, Jesus calls the kingdom of God, Martin Luther King calls it the beloved community. We can't even create a beloved community because we have all these labels, and you refuse to see a woman or another man as yourself.
Okay.
Red Bull.
Red Bull, you can go ahead and say what you're going to say. And for those that's on the line, if you want to say something else, press *6 on your line. You'll go into queue. Go ahead, Red Bull.
Well, let me first say that the prison system is the product of mamas believing in Jesus and teaching their children, their boys and girls, this ideology of what Jesus Christ is about. In other words,
every person that's in prison, they mama taught them Jesus.
Well, I'll just use myself. Because
There you go.
in that Bible, it says, "Thou shalt not," right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the African way of thinking, it says, "I will not." That's what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
That you're definitely, yeah. I shouldn't. That's what that is. But I will. You understand? In your head, "Thou shalt not." Somebody's telling you. But if you speak from a different concept and you go from the inside out, you would say, "I will not," and you put those commandments in your head from that perspective. Then, whenever I'm out and I'm at the grocery store and I'm getting ready to steal something, that comes to my head, "I will not steal." I've been practicing that.
Still going through this, and we just
Let me finish. Okay, we're saying that with a European mindset. Those that are saying and speaking that are still believing in this divine person outside of themselves instead of believing in the divine person that they are. And I want to give my rebuttal on that. I believe at the college.
You're your own. I believe means that I can't live your life. I don't know what your life is. So have a real dialogue about what you're. But I don't know. Wait a minute, slow down. But I don't know when you say I believe. I don't. First of all, your beliefs aren't necessarily tangible. What's a belief? See, a book is.
When they put the picture of Jesus in the Bible, and there was a white boy with blonde hair and blue eyes, you understand? Do you think they only put the picture that was wrong and didn't put words that was wrong? You think they didn't reword it for them also? Come on now.
Well, you're missing my point. No, you're missing my point. No, you're missing my point. Hold on. Okay, but wait a minute. See, this is what I'm saying. So here's logic. Logic is that is the way you look at it. I can look at the exact same thing that you looked at and don't see that. And so therefore that allows to enter into the conversation logically, because based on what you're looking at, I can go to the book and say, but here, red, I don't know which one you are, red bull or blue bull, one of the bulls, I can say, read this statement right here. Then which academics allows you to do. So therefore, even though me and you read the same thing and got two different perspectives on it, we can come to a common ground. So that way, like Derek is saying about where do we go from here, that we don't necessarily have to agree all the way to the letter, but it does allow me to interact with you and communicate you in a civil and productive way. But see, if we only talk about what we believe, you just spouting off stuff, and I say, well, I don't believe it, and me and neither one of us, you can't prove that I'm wrong or right, and I can't prove that you're wrong or right. So guess what happens? We usually walk away, and neither of us got nothing. Except for a whole bunch of talking.
I saw in the Bible. I see in the Bible a white Jesus. That's what I see.
I ain't never seen in the Bible a white Jesus. I haven't seen. What Bible are you looking at? What Bible are you looking at? There's a zillion of them.
This is why I think we can't.
There's a zillion of them. Which Bible are you talking about?
It's something greater than seeing a white or black Jesus. I see why we still in the same place, really. And I'm trying to hope now, because that's why I'm doing calls like this, so I can kind of get the pulse of the people and see where we at. I kind of see why we get stuck, because we get stuck on same stuff without being progressive enough to say, can we all think different? You can think this way, this person thinks this way, and we come together and say, this is what we're going to do together. Can we come together with a common cause and say,
the common cause would be an African mind, which you was born with, but somewhere in your life you became.
Yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean?
The laws of Maya.
And then when you take a particular stance, that's how you interpret it, even though that may not be what the text has said, I can now agree to disagree with you. Because I now have an opportunity, and that keeps us cordial, and that keeps us on the same page, and it keeps us, as you know, to convince you to believe my part of the conversation. That's the key point.
That's what we
see when you talk about believe.
That's what all the conversations is, though. That's all.
No, not a text. And there's numerous ways of perceiving a text. Why are you going to try to convince me to believe what you believe? Why don't you just give me the information? Let me process the information. Look up some books and some things that can support.
From an African mindset, and then I use an example.
But what is an African mindset?
Listen, thou should not kill versus I did not kill. You know why the white man gave us that word? You know why?
But you still
using
why
the white man gave us that word? You know what it means?
You say stop using the European. You said stop using contradictory. So how am I going?
I say it's a whole bunch of different, because we talk about semantics. If we can cut through if we can get to the bottom line and say, and that's what I think we'll have on the next conversation. Because now we see what we need.
Semantics.
We got so many different angles that I feel that we need to approach. And the below people, y'all can do something different. My thing is saying, start economically. What do we need to do? First of all, we can't do nothing if we don't have nothing of our own. We don't even have.
So my approach with that, yeah. If my approach with economically, if we stop giving 10% to the church and give 10% to the village, then maybe we will move in a progressive movement.
You ain't gonna do nothing but create somebody else just like the church. We gotta if you say we're going to give 10% to, and I'm just throwing it out there, to even an African-centered school, we have to make sure that African-centered school is doing what we need economically.
We don't have to, because when you put your resources in the African mind and the African hands, just like with someone your ministry. Do you remember that? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Did I not contribute to your ministry and didn't ask nothing about where it was going, whatever happened to it?
Correct.
You can.
I'm gonna ask since he made the challenge. I'm gonna ask, did he give that Jesus believer? The Jesus believer.
He did. He went over and beyond. To be honest, he went over and beyond.
Shit.
So
okay, but wait. So here's my suggestion. Where do we go from here? Wait a minute. This is what I suggested that we do. So I believe for this conversation, which is one of the reasons why I go on this call, because it does keep me from doing the academic conversation. I do believe that where you need to start is you need to go find you a Dr. Woods and people who have PhDs and who study religion as a profession, because I do believe the art of discourse is what's lacking in the community, because you're not going to be able to come up with a strategy that you talked about, Derek. You're not going to be able to come out of perspective, and you're not going to be able to come up with some type of order to these multiple perspectives unless you go with people who are trained how to take a bunch of information and put it into a systematic and logical discourse and logical comprehension, so that we can actually, do the heavy lifting and find out where we want to go. Somebody has to lay the information out so that we can see it in its entirety as much as possible. And things have lived harmoniously together. And going back to the brother who was on the call earlier that talks about Dr. Kemet, that talked about one of the things that makes Egypt one of the most greatest civilizations in human history is because they've lived harmoniously longer as a civilization in peace than any other, longer than Greece, longer than Rome, longer than America, longer than Spain, longer than all the European that we know as far as Western civilization has gone. They lived harmoniously together. So humans do know how to do this, but I think what's missing, even from this conversation, is you don't engage with scholars enough to be able to figure out a plan to operate in your everyday life.
What people gonna say with that? You know what people gonna say.
Can
I say something?
People gonna say is we don't need a scholar. We don't need scholars. You
okay,
bull. In your own mind.
All right.
Yeah.
Red Bull, can I say something?
Sure. Hold on, just a minute. I'm gonna bring you in just a minute.
Okay.
Most people, when I approach it, that's why I am gonna approach it that way, because I understand the techniques of we need both sides. We need the scholars, we I want to hear all concepts, all ideas. So I'm still collecting data as well to see. Because with me, I need to collect this data and say, okay, what's the best move? And I've been collecting it for a while. For those who know, I've been consistent on these calls. I've been doing what I need to do, spreading this call, making it consistent. So I'm gathering all the data to see, okay, where is the pulse of the people? A lot of people don't like to converse like this. They more so like then send the system, all different kinds of systems, and come up with a system so we can be productive. Because the main thing is I want to give people information that's productive. We are right at the time, so make it real quick, Red Bull, so we can get, because it's 8:36 right now. So.
Real fast. Well, when the Kemetic people was living harmoniously, they was living with an African mindset before the Greek, Greco-Roman, Catholic, Christian church came and took over the land and made them Christians, Jesus believers. I digress with that.
All right. Well, what I want to do is we definitely want to, we always like to give you a book to read. No one
Yes.
got there. He gave us a couple of books. Let Dr. Matthews also give us some books on this.
I want to. I would.
I'm gonna continue to work. We go from here, but I'm gonna take it from a different aspect the next time, because I do like the information as far as that we're able to give out, but I do want to make it more direct as well. Now that I'm seeing the pulse of the people, we just have to come up with a good curriculum, so to speak. Go ahead.
The book that I suggest everybody read is by Jane. Well, there's several. I think if you're looking for, look up the author James Cone, and the one that I think that you can start off with is James Cone, A Black Theology of Liberation by James H. Cone, or you can say God of the Oppressed. With this group, I think this book, James Cone, is a really good place for you to start, where you, especially on this Christian, and looking at how scholars have looked at religion. And the reason why I say James Cone is a good point to start, because he was coming up and getting his PhD at a time when Malcolm and Martin were around, and he lived it. He was there. And he became very infuriated about how, the way their lives ended and what that meant for us. And he wrote this book, A Black Theology of Liberation. It's also what President Obama was when he was going to church in Chicago. This Black liberation theology. The book was written in 1969. It's a must read. If you really do want to get into the conversation about this theology, this Christian theology from an Afrocentric perspective, read James Cone, A Black Theology of Liberation. It's a life-changing book. And then from there, if you read all of James Cone's books, and then when you want to talk about the prison situation, he even has a book. Let me just tell you this last one. Hold on. I think it's called, I paraphrased it. Let me see.
I want to bring, what's his name? I want to bring Dr. Woods in. He had something to say real briefly. Dr. Woods, you there?
Yeah, I want to be brief. I really wish when we get these conversational topics that we stick with the topics. We lose, when we go to the periphery, we lose a lot of time in discussion. If we're going to talk about Jesus of history, let's talk about Jesus of history. It's not a time to talk about incarceration. So there are a couple of things here. We must balance the Jesus in history with the propensity to have faith. Otherwise, we waste time. There are historical writings. Josephus, for instance, was a Jewish historian. We have writings to reflect what he said. And it was during the time of the Palestinian overthrow by the Roman government. It was written in Greek at the time. And so, if it's been passed down through the ages, a commonsensical, intelligent person would have to give some credence to the fact that no one has been able to oppose or rewrite what he wrote. That's what history is. And so to overlook everything that's been written is really ignorant, because we're historical beings. That's what we are. Now, the other thing is, we must be careful. I think, I'm like Derek, haven't we arrived now? Can't we accept the fact we don't have to debate this man of color? But we're beyond that now. We already know. We don't need Kemet, nobody else to tell us. And this same Bible that you contradict begins in Africa. I mean, come on. You talking about European mindset? Europeans would have never said that Adam and Eve and the first geographic mentioning was Mesopotamia. They would have stuck it in Germany somewhere. So come on now. I'm like Derek. And let's not contradict what we're saying. And here's another thing. Anybody looking for the historical Jesus in the context of black theology, great theology, is crazy. You must be intelligent and open. I could care less what color he was, but I just want the truth. James Cone does an excellent job, but he makes such a broad effort and writes with such a broad brush that he over-theologizes to compensate for the lack of blackness that we were brainwashed into thinking that it was all European in the first place. So that's not true either when you go too far to try to compensate. I think it's a good book. I mean, if you're brainwashed and think Jesus was white, you might need to read that. But if you come to the realization of the truth, that more than likely, Jesus being a Middle Easterner, being a man of color. And here's my last point. If Jesus is a mythical figure, how do you explain that century after century, as far back as history can take us, there was an existence of this Jesus? You know, mythical figures come and go, and they die. Why has it been sustained, and how is this book, the Bible, that's been published in almost every language, has always been the number one book seller? Always. You can't say European. You can't say African. It's international. How do you explain that? How do you explain this book in all languages all over the world? And there definitely are similarities. So when you start lining it up, and like my sister said, we got to start from somewhere. But your opinion is not where we want to start. There must be some basis to support your opinion. Otherwise, you know, we can't even derive a principle from your opinion.
Right.
Biased, one-sided, and very limiting. So we got, you know, you're going to be willing to come to the table. Let's do this. And here's one more thing. We all have biases. But, you know, bias is like an ego. Negroes who don't check their egos at the door do nothing but argue and fight. That's why black churches can't get together and do nothing. And my brother, listen, when you talk about turning money over to the community, the only example I can use is how much money has been turned over to the president of black universities or black colleges, and they went freaking broke. We steal more from ourselves than a white man steals from us. Because we have learned. Did we get that from Africa? Or did we get that from the white mindset? Let's try to pull a race out of this Jesus thing. I don't think we'll accomplish anything. I already feel that he was a man of color. Let me move on from that and deal with the principles. Did he live? Is there history to support that? Are there writings? Are there narratives? And let's go and research that. And let's not stop in Egypt. There were civilizations before Egypt.
Correct.
So how you gonna give Egypt all the freedom? And Egypt had slaves.
Now, hold on, Dr. Woods. That's an opinion. So, but I will say this. I will say this. I will say this though, in what you're saying, totally, but also part of the conversation that I would also say, even when you're talking to the rest of the callers, the calling of people needs to quit too, though. Because when you're expressing your opinion, to call someone stupid or to call someone, that does, and you know this, Dr. Woods, you can't have that conversation, and you can't even start a conversation like that in ignorant, whatever. But even in the academic setting, even in the academic setting, that is not appropriate. Okay, but hold on.
Not name calling, and I didn't call anyone stupid.
Well, ignorant.
Intelligent. And if you learn it, you're not intelligent. There is such a thing as ignorance. Ignorance being lack of knowledge. You're not naming.
Right, but what I'm saying is that in the academic setting, name calling is not good. Yeah, I'm just saying. But at any rate, okay. But no, I get what you say. I mean, but I'm just saying. But that's another reason why I say, Derek, in my original statement, when I mean, because like I said, the caller believes what they believe, and so therefore, like I said, when you use the word belief, opinions, I do, you're going to get this conversation, which is why I say not that scholars have more knowledge than organic people, or know more than other people. That's not the premise that I'm having the conversation.
You don't have to.
Well, no, I'm saying right, but also part.
Have knowledge.
Correct. But one thing academia does do is it teaches you. Well, hold on.
No, wait a minute.
See, hold on.
Academia is not limited to an institution.
I know that. But Dr. Woods, but academia gives you a safer space because you come into a classroom where you can be taught discourse rules and regulations on how to share diverse. Okay, slow down. This is okay. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. This would not work in the academy. Okay? Go ahead. All right, you right. Go ahead. You right.
It's not limited to an institution.
I said yes. I agree with that. I said, but what the hollow halls of knowledge allows you to do is it gives you a safer space in which opposing opinions, like the caller on the phone who has an opinion and who has a belief system, it's a place where we can come together for a specific amount of time in which we can have discourse, respectful, understanding, and we can try to come to an understanding, and it teaches you the principles of how to have discourse in a way that people walk away critically thinking about their life and not demeaned or battered or feeling frustrated. Or it does give you a systematic way in which to share opposing views. It does teach you how to do that. But you don't have to do so. When we talk about where do we go from here, I'm sticking to my original comment. My original comment was, I think you need a historical Jesus, and you also need a Christ. You need your faith, and you need history. That also supports what Dr. Woods just said. Your faith can also be grounded in history. And so therefore, and how people have done this over time. And then you are allowed, being a person of free will, to choose what you believe after you have done some research and looked at it and talked about it and been able to interact with other people. Second of all, because I believe that, I believe one of the things the African American community can do to better learn how to communicate with each other so that we can actually come up with a strategy that we can practically use in our everyday lives to make our communities better is engage scholars. That's my opinion. That's my perspective, and I still believe you should read James Cone, whether you believe in this white Jesus or a black Jesus or whatever. I think a good book, this is a topic that you're interested in, I suggest you pick up his books because he does frame the conversation in a way that allows you to critically think about it. And then he has this other book too, The Cross and the Lynching Tree. It's another good book that I think that you ought to look at, because what Dr. Woods is talking about, the first book he wrote back in 1969, this is a book he wrote in the 21st century. And if you read Dr. James Cone, you'd be able to see how his thoughts have changed over time to the point that he's a lot more radical, or a little bit more radical, in The Cross and the Lynching Tree.
Okay. All right, we're going to cut it off right there. We're going to leave it right there. And to next week, we'll bring it in, and we'll definitely bring a little more definition to where do we go from here. So I think we definitely, the callers that's on the line, thank y'all once again for calling in. I know we get a lot of texts, a lot of emails for people that wanted to speak, wanted to say something. You can always press *6 on your line as well. But for now, once again, thank everyone for calling in. Thank my callers for being so faithful. Y'all can continue to share the call as well. If you got anything else that you want to say, you can send me an inbox. You can text me stuff that you agree with, that you didn't agree with. Let me know so we can get it together. So until next time, just remember to think progressively. Talk to y'all later.